I want to share something real with you today. There was a time I couldn't even imagine earning 100,000 pesos in a single month. That number felt too far, too impossible. I thought maybe that's for people with connections, or people who graduated from big schools, or people who were just lucky. But something changed in me. And no, it wasn't a magic business idea or some quick win. It was a mindset. Let me take you back. One day I came across a seminar from Bob Proctor. Maybe you've heard of him. The title was "You Were Born Rich." That already shook me. But there was one part in the talk that really hit me hard. It was called Me and Money. He said your relationship with money, how you think about it, talk about it, feel about it, becomes your reality. That line stopped me because I started to realize my whole life I treated money like a stranger. I said things like, money is hard to earn. Money doesn't grow on trees. People who have money are greedy. And worst of all, maybe I'm just not meant to be rich. I didn't even notice that these beliefs were shaping how I lived, how I worked, and what I expected from life. And the more I listened to that talk, the more I realized it's not about the money itself. It's about how you think about money. That was the beginning of a shift that changed my life. I started asking myself, what do I really believe about money? Do I feel guilty when I ask for it? Do I feel scared when I have too little? Do I believe I can actually make more of it without burning out? Because here's what I learned from Bob Proctor, and I saw it in my own life. Money is a reflection of how you think and feel. If you see it as evil, you'll push it away. If you think you're not worthy of it, you'll sabotage it. If you believe it's only for other people, you'll never build it for yourself. When I understood that, everything shifted. I started treating money differently. Not as the goal, but as a tool. I respected it. I studied how it works. I stopped chasing it, and instead, I started creating value. I started solving problems. And month after month, I noticed something strange. Money started showing up. Not all at once, but enough to surprise me. Until one day, I looked at my numbers and realized I had crossed 100,000 pesos in a single month. No fireworks, no big celebration, just a quiet, powerful moment of knowing, this is real, and it started the day I changed how I saw money. If you're listening to this, and money still feels like a struggle, I want to tell you something you might not hear often. It's not just about working harder. It's about thinking better. Your relationship with money matters. And just like any relationship, it can be healed, rebuilt, and improved. Start with this question. What are the stories you've been telling yourself about money? Because those stories, those quiet beliefs, are either blocking it or allowing it. You don't need to be born rich to live rich, but you do need to think rich. Not in an arrogant way, but in a healthy, open, intentional way. Since that day, I've continued to study money, not just in books, but in real life. How it moves, how it grows, how it responds to value. And I'll tell you more about that soon. But for now, I'll leave you with this. I didn't earn 100,000 pesos a month because I got lucky. I earned it because I changed my mind. And if it happened to me, it can happen to you too. The first real shift that happened in me, the one that cracked open the door to everything else, was this. I stopped apologizing for desiring more. That might sound simple to some, but if you've grown up in a place like I did, where almost everyone is struggling just to get by, where just the idea of wanting more can be seen as selfish, ambitious, or even sinful, then you know this shift is not so easy. I spent a lot of my life believing that desiring more was wrong, especially as a missionary. I gave up a lot to serve. I lived simply, I traveled, I gave my time, energy, and heart to others. And I don't regret that season, because it taught me about humility, about purpose, and about the value of things that money can't buy. But here's the truth most people don't talk about. Even in service, I was still silently struggling with lack. There were times when I couldn't afford to go where I needed to go. Times when I wanted to help someone but didn't have enough for myself. And that made me question something deep in my heart. If I'm doing good work, if I'm serving people, why do I feel like I'm being punished for wanting a better life? That's when I started searching for answers, not just in books, but in the Bible itself. And I found something that changed everything. In the book of Genesis, there's a clear command from God, be fruitful and multiply. That hit me hard. Because for the first time, I saw that fruitfulness was not selfish, it was sacred. It was not a worldly desire, it was a spiritual instruction. I began to realize it is in our original design to desire growth, to expand, to create, to become more so we can give more. God didn't say, stay small and barely survive. He said, be fruitful. And that means we were meant to grow. Not just spiritually, but also mentally, emotionally, financially. The desire for more is not wrong. It becomes wrong when it's rooted in greed or pride. But when it's rooted in purpose, in love, and stewardship, it becomes powerfully right. And that was the moment I stopped apologizing. I stopped saying, okay, nako kahit ganito lang. I stopped pretending that I didn't want to grow because I didn't want others to feel bad. I stopped hiding my hunger just to look humble. Because here's the truth. There's nothing humble about shrinking your life to fit other people's expectations. That's not humility. That's fear in disguise. True humility is saying, yes, I want more, but not just for myself. I want to become more so I can give more, help more, and lead more. I realized that if I kept playing small, I wasn't being noble, I was being selfish. Because staying small meant fewer people I could serve, fewer dreams I could support, less impact I could make. So I made a decision. I gave myself permission to want more. I gave myself permission to grow. I stopped apologizing for dreaming big. And when that happened, my life started to expand in ways I never expected. People noticed the shift. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving, I was showing up with vision. And vision is attractive. Vision pulls you forward. Vision gives your steps direction. You stop wandering, and you start building. That's what happened to me. And I know what some people might think, well, isn't that selfish? Isn't that worldly thinking? But let me ask you something. If God gave you the ability to create, to imagine, to solve problems, and to bless others, isn't it wrong to waste that by choosing to stay small? Isn't it more honoring to use what you've been given and multiply it? Just like the parable of the talents. The one who buried his gift was the one rebuked. The ones who multiplied what they had were the ones praised. So I say this with boldness now. You were not born to stay small. You were born to be fruitful. And fruitfulness begins with a decision to stop apologizing for the seed of greatness God already placed inside you. Let that sink in. Because here's what I know. Once I gave myself permission to want more, my work changed. My decisions changed. I stopped settling for the lowest level. I started asking better questions. What kind of life am I building? Who am I becoming in the process? Am I multiplying what's been entrusted to me? Those questions led to new habits. New habits led to new skills. New skills led to new income. And that income led to new impact. But it all started with one shift in the mind. Stop apologizing for your desire to grow. Because you can be a servant and still be successful. You can be kind and still be powerful. You can be humble and still be wealthy. These are not opposites. They are partners. And together, they make you someone who doesn't just talk about purpose. You live it out in every area of your life. The second mindset shift that changed everything for me was this. I started treating my mind like a business. Let me explain. A real business has systems. It has a mission, a strategy, and boundaries. A good business doesn't just do things randomly. It tracks what works. It protects its time. It hires good people. It invests in what brings results and cuts what doesn't. But for the longest time, I didn't treat my mind that way. I let anything in. I allowed any thought, any emotion, any distraction to stay there as long as it wanted. I listened to negative people. I consumed useless content. And I didn't even realize I was losing profit every single day. Not in pesos, but in clarity, in energy, in confidence. Then one day, I asked myself a question that changed everything. If my mind was a business, would I invest in it? And if I was being honest, the answer was no. Because my mind was a mess. I was always distracted. I had no system, no direction. I was just reacting to everything around me. And that's when I realized if I wanted a different life, I needed to manage my inner world better than any outer hustle. So I made a decision. From that day forward, I would treat my mind like a serious business. And that meant 3 things. First, I became careful with what I allowed in. Just like a business doesn't accept every supplier or every deal, I stopped accepting every input. I stopped watching content that drained me. I stopped following pages or people who were always negative or gossiping or shouting about how bad the world is. I unfollowed drama. I stopped giving attention to things that didn't feed my vision. Because every second I spent listening to garbage was a second stolen from my future. You cannot grow a rich life with a poor mental diet. That's like feeding fast food to an athlete and expecting him to win gold. It doesn't work. So I replaced what I consumed. I started listening to people who had the life I wanted. I read books, even when it was hard at first. I filled my ears with teaching, not trash, and slowly my inner world got stronger. Second, I made time for thinking, not just doing. This is a big one. Poor minds are always in motion, but never in direction. They're always busy, but not effective. I used to be like that, always doing something, but not really growing. Then I learned that great minds make time to pause, reflect, and plan. I started treating my thoughts like assets. I would journal every morning. I would write down ideas, lessons, and things I noticed about myself. If I failed, I didn't just feel bad, I studied the failure. If I succeeded, I didn't just celebrate. I learned what worked. Because you can't build a future you're not thinking about. I set time to think daily, even just 10 to 15 minutes of silence to ask, what's working? What's not? What do I need to change? Most people are so busy reacting that they never get time to redirect. But business owners do it. They look at their numbers, their systems, their operations. Why? Because if they don't reflect, they'll collapse. And I realized, if I want my life to grow, I have to treat my mind the same way. Third, I stopped partnering with my emotions. You can't run a business on emotion. You run it on principle. That's something I learned the hard way, because I used to let my emotions control my actions. If I didn't feel motivated, I wouldn't work. If I felt scared, I would avoid taking a risk. If I felt insecure, I would shrink back and stay quiet. But emotion is a bad CEO. It doesn't care about your future. It only cares about comfort. So I had to learn how to feel my emotions, but still move forward with discipline. That's what real leaders do. They acknowledge fear, but still choose action. They feel pressure, but still follow the plan. Your mind can't be run by your feelings. It has to be run by your values, your mission, and your clarity. And that clarity comes from building habits that support the life you want. So I started waking up earlier. I created a simple routine. I studied, I reflected, I created, even on days I didn't feel like it. And let me tell you something. That's when momentum started. Because the moment you run your mind like a business, your life starts becoming productive, not just busy. You start choosing what deserves your time. You stop begging for permission. You stop wasting energy on things that don't grow you. And you begin to produce value, internally and externally. Let me ask you right now, if your life was a business, is it growing or barely surviving? Is your mind organized or chaotic? Are you investing in what grows you, or spending your days reacting to things that drain you? I'm not asking to judge you. I'm asking because I've been there. And if you want to shift out of survival mode, this is one of the most powerful things you can do. You treat your mind as your first company, because your mind is where your future begins. That's where your ideas live. That's where your strategy is born. That's where your purpose gets shaped. And if you protect it, invest in it, and manage it wisely, it will produce wealth, not just in pesos, but in peace, purpose, and possibilities. I say this with all honesty. The turning point in my income didn't begin with my wallet. It began in my thoughts. So if you're still broke, still stuck, still unsure, maybe the next level of your life is waiting for a CEO to finally take charge, and that CEO is you. The third shift that unlocked a new life for me was this. I replaced desperation with creation. And I say this with full honesty, because I lived in that place of desperation for a long time. I know how it feels when your back is against the wall, when you look at your wallet and it's empty, when bills are piling up and you don't even know where to begin, when you open your phone hoping something changed, but it's the same dead silence. No sales, no opportunities, no replies. I've been there. And in those moments, it's so easy to move from hunger to panic. You start to ask, what can I do right now to make money? How can I get something, anything, to happen today? You start posting randomly. You start offering things out of pressure. You start messaging people in a way that sounds more like begging than business. And guess what happens? people pull away. Because energy doesn't lie. People can smell desperation from miles away. And even if your product or service is good, the energy you carry with it, if it's filled with panic, fear, or pressure, will push people away. I had to learn that the hard way. At some point I realized I wasn't attracting success. I was chasing it. And anything you chase runs faster than you. So I stopped. I took a deep breath. And I asked a better question. Instead of saying, how do I get something today? I asked, what can I create today that will serve someone tomorrow? That question changed everything. Because creation pulls you out of survival mode. Creation puts you back in control. Creation reminds you that even if you're broke, you are not helpless. You have something in your mind, in your hands, Gav, in your story, in your skills, that someone else needs. You just need to package it. And that's what I started doing. I began to shift from consumer mode to creator mode. Instead of just scrolling through content, I made content. Instead of just asking for help, I asked, what problem can I solve? Instead of waiting for a job, I looked for value I could give. This is when things started moving. I started writing. I started speaking. I started building offers based on what people needed, not just what I wanted to sell. And here's the funny part. The more I focused on creating value, the less I had to sell in the desperate sense. People came to me because people are drawn to creators, not beggars. To solutions, not complaints. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need a big following. You don't even need a lot of money to start. You just need to ask, what can I build today that can help someone solve a problem tomorrow? Even something small. A short video, a helpful post, a simple product, an offer, a guide, an idea shared, a message that speaks to someone else's pain. Every piece of value you create becomes a seed. And if you stay consistent, those seeds turn into roots. Those roots turn into results, and those results compound. I've seen this happen in my own life. There was a time I was only earning from one place, one skill, and I thought that was security. But when I started creating more, building things that could live online, things that could serve people while I slept, that's when income started multiplying. Now I can be offline and still be earning. Because value doesn't sleep. What you create today can still work for you tomorrow, next week, or next year. That's leverage. And this is where technology became my partner. I used to think, kailangan kong lumibot para magbenta. Kailangan ko ng location. Kailangan ko ng physical na store. But the moment I embraced online tools, Facebook, YouTube, digital products, mobile payment, content creation, I realized something powerful. My business doesn't have to be limited to my location. I can sell to people across cities, provinces, even nationwide, without ever leaving my room. This changed the game. I didn't have a big team. I didn't have funding. I just had a phone, internet, and the will to create. And slowly, value started coming back to me in return. Not just in income, but in trust, in reputation, in confidence. All because I shifted from desperation to creation. Now, I want to speak directly to you if you're listening, if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been posting, promoting, selling, but nothing seems to work, if you've been waiting for someone to help you, maybe it's time to stop waiting. Maybe it's time to stop begging. Maybe it's time to start building. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for perfect timing. You just have to begin. Start creating. Start solving. Start using what you know, what you've lived through, what you've learned. There's someone out there looking for exactly what you have inside you. You don't need to be rich to create. You create to stop being broke. Let me remind you, the system was never designed to reward desperation. It rewards contribution. It rewards those who give before they ask, those who serve before they sell. And I promise you, when you become a consistent creator of value, money becomes a byproduct. Not overnight, but it will come. Because in the end, the world doesn't owe us anything, but it will always respond to what we consistently give. So don't chase, create, and you'll be surprised at how far that single shift will take you.